It is 2:47 inches the morning. You are already awake. Again. You shuffled to that bathroom with your eyes half shut, stood there for what felt like an eternity, and managed to squeeze out something that barely qualifies as a trickle. Then you crawled back into bed, heart pounding, sleep shattered, and you lay there staring at the ceiling, knowing that in another 90 minutes you are going to do the whole humiliating routine all over again. And the cruelest part? You have a little orange bottle of saw palmetto sitting on your nightstand. You bought it because some doctor shrugged and said it might help. You have been taking it faithfully for months, maybe longer, and your prostate does not care one bit. The swelling continues, the nighttime trips continue, the weak, hesitant stream that makes you feel like a man half dismantled continues. If that is your life right now, I need you to stop everything and watch this. Because what mainstream medicine has been prescribing for your prostate is not just ineffective, it is a biological insult. And the real solution has been sitting in peer-reviewed clinical journals for over 2 decades, while the supplement industry kept you distracted with cheap berry extracts and empty promises. Here is what nobody in a white coat has ever taken the time to explain to you. Your prostate does not swell because of age in some vague, inevitable way. It swells because of a specific, identifiable, stoppable, biological process that is happening inside your body right now at this very moment, and it has a name. Benign prostatic hyperplasia, driven almost entirely by the relentless accumulation of a toxic androgenic byproduct called dihydrotestosterone. Say that again with me, dihydrotestosterone, DHT. This is not a theoretical enemy. This is a measurable molecular compound that your own body manufactures through a rogue enzymatic reaction, and after the age of 50, it builds up inside your prostate tissue faster than your body can clear it. I want you to picture a garden hose lying flat on dry grass. Water is trying to move through that hose with reasonable pressure. Now, I want you to imagine someone walks up and places the heel of a heavy boot directly on top of that hose, right at the midpoint, and leans their full body weight into it. The hose does not burst. It just collapses. The water behind the compression builds and builds, the pressure aches, but almost nothing gets through. That is your urethra. That is your bladder right now. The hose is your urethral channel, running straight through the center of your prostate gland. And that boot pressing down on it, squeezing the life out of your flow, is decades of DHT accumulation, causing your prostate to physically engulf the channel from every side simultaneously. The gland swells outward and inward. It grows in all directions. And because your urethra runs directly through the middle of it like a straw through a clenched fist, every millimeter of prostatic growth tightens that grip. Your bladder contracts furiously trying to force urine through. It can only push so much. You wake up 5 times a night because your bladder reaches a point of desperate irritation at a fraction of its actual capacity. You stand at the toilet straining because the outflow is genuinely obstructed at the tissue level. This is not a mindset problem. This is not a hydration problem. This is a DHT problem, and it starts with an enzyme your doctor has almost certainly never mentioned to you by name, 5-alpha reductase. Here is the biochemistry you were never taught. Your testosterone does not become DHT on its own. It requires a conversion. Your body contains an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, and this enzyme grabs your circulating testosterone and performs a molecular transformation, stripping a hydrogen atom from the steroid ring structure and producing dihydrotestosterone. DHT binds to the androgen receptors inside your prostate cells with an affinity that is roughly 5 times more powerful than testosterone itself. Imagine a key that opens a lock not just once but jams itself in and refuses to come out. That is DHT inside your prostate androgen receptors. It triggers cell proliferation signals. It tells the prostate tissue to grow. And in a young man, this process is balanced by hormonal clearance mechanisms that neutralize excess DHT before it can accumulate. But after 50, that clearance machinery slows dramatically. Your sex hormone binding globulin, the protein responsible for capturing and escorting excess androgens out of your tissues, becomes increasingly saturated. Excess estrogen compounds from declining testosterone metabolism compete for the same pathways. The result is a prostate that operates in a hormonal environment completely stacked against it, marinating in DHT it cannot expel, swelling year after year while you take your saw palmetto and hope for a miracle that biochemistry will never deliver. And that brings me to the moment of productive fury that I want every man watching this video to feel. Because someone has been making money off of your suffering. The global saw palmetto supplement market generates hundreds of millions of dollars annually. It is the single most recommended prostate supplement in the world. Physicians recommend it, pharmacists stock it, wellness influencers promote it, and the clinical data on standard saw palmetto extract is, and I will use the most accurate word available to me, embarrassing. Here is what the science actually shows. Generic saw palmetto berry extract, the kind filling the shelves of every pharmacy and supermarket, is composed of a crude liposterolic mixture. The active compounds, the sterols and fatty acids that theoretically interfere with 5-alpha reductase, are present at inconsistent concentrations and are highly sensitive to gastric acid degradation. A 2011 randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the most rigorous studies ever conducted on this supplement, enrolled over 360 men with moderate to severe lower urinary tract symptoms and found that saw palmetto extract at standard dose, at double dose, and at triple dose produced outcomes statistically indistinguishable from placebo, not slightly worse, not marginally inferior, equivalent to a sugar pill at any dose tested. The reason the biochemistry community was not surprised is because standard saw palmetto lacks the purified sitosterol concentration required to meaningfully inhibit 5-alpha reductase at the prostatic tissue level. Think of it this way. Inhibiting 5-alpha reductase requires a molecule that can survive your stomach acid, navigate your digestive tract, enter your bloodstream intact, cross the prostatic capsule, reach the intracellular space of the glandular cells, and then bind competitively at the enzyme's active site with enough affinity to block testosterone conversion. Generic berry extracts do not survive that journey in any meaningful concentration. You are spending money every month on a compound that your stomach dissolves before it ever reaches the system it is supposed to protect. Your prostate has been growing while you dutifully swallowed those capsules. And the companies selling them have not lost a single night of sleep over it, because the marketing budget keeps working even when the product does not. Now I am going to tell you what actually works. Not theoretically, not anecdotally, clinically and mechanistically. The compound is called beta-sitosterol, and before you dismiss it as just another plant sterol, I need you to understand why the purified, high-potency form of this molecule is in an entirely different biological category from anything you have tried before. Beta-sitosterol is a phytosterol found naturally in plant cell membranes, but in its purified, pharmaceutical-grade form, it does something that saw palmetto cannot do. It survives your digestive environment with structural integrity. It is absorbed through your intestinal wall via the same cholesterol transport mechanism that your body uses for fat-soluble nutrients, meaning it enters your bloodstream at meaningful concentrations. And once inside your systemic circulation, it reaches prostatic tissue and performs two distinct and powerful actions simultaneously. First, it directly and competitively inhibits 5-alpha reductase at the enzyme's active site. It physically occupies the binding pocket that testosterone would need to enter for conversion into DHT. No binding, no conversion. No conversion, no new DHT. The boot begins to lift off the hose. Second, and this is where it becomes exceptional, beta-sitosterol at clinical concentrations downregulates the inflammatory signaling cascades within the prostatic stroma, the connective tissue framework surrounding the glandular cells. Prostatic hyperplasia is not just a hormonal event, it is also an inflammatory event. The chronic DHT stimulation creates a state of low-grade tissue inflammation that accelerates glandular proliferation independently of the hormonal signal. Beta-sitosterol interrupts both pathways simultaneously, addressing the root cause at the enzymatic level while simultaneously reducing the inflammatory environment driving further growth. But here is why the protocol I am about to give you is not just beta-sitosterol alone. because there is a second biological problem running parallel that must be addressed for this intervention to fully succeed, and that is the hormonal trafficking problem inside your prostate tissue. This is where stinging nettle root extract becomes not optional but essential. Urtica dioica root, to use its clinical name, contains a family of bioactive lectins and polysaccharides that bind directly to sex hormone binding globulin, the protein that is supposed to capture and clear excess DHT and estrogen from your tissues. In men over 50, SHBG becomes increasingly occupied and dysfunctional, unable to perform its clearing role effectively. Stinging nettle root constituents bind to SHBG at the steroid hormone binding site, effectively outcompeting DHT and estrogen for that binding position. This is not a metaphor. This is a documented molecular interaction. By occupying SHBG's binding site, the nettle root compounds force a competitive displacement of DHT from the protein carrier, increasing the rate at which DHT is metabolized and cleared from prostatic tissue directly. The tissue DHT load drops. The androgen receptor stimulation that was driving cellular proliferation is reduced. The gland begins to normalize its volume. A 2007 double-blind randomized controlled trial conducted in Iran and published in the Journal of Herbal Pharmacotherapy followed 120 men with confirmed benign prostatic hyperplasia over 6 months. The group receiving stinging nettle root extract showed a statistically significant improvement in International Prostate Symptom Score, reduced post-void residual urine volume, and measurably improved maximum urinary flow rate compared to placebo. These are the exact metrics that matter, not a questionnaire about how the patient feels in general. Specific urodynamic measurements of actual urinary mechanics. And this was stinging nettle root in isolation, without the synergistic amplification of beta-sitosterol working simultaneously on the enzymatic conversion pathway. Here is the exact protocol. I am calling it the Iron Stream Protocol, and I want you to implement this the same night you finish watching this video. Every night, exactly 30 minutes before you lie down to sleep, on a completely empty stomach, you are going to take 500 milligrams of purified beta-sitosterol, not a mixed phytosterol blend. Not a product where beta-sitosterol is listed fourth on the ingredient panel. Purified beta-sitosterol at a minimum assay purity of 95% at 500 milligrams. Paired with that, in the same dose window, you will take 300 milligrams of stinging nettle root extract, standardized to at least 1% silica content, which is the marker for active lectin concentration in quality products. You take both of these 30 minutes before sleep because your body's tissue repair and hormonal regulation cycles are most active during the first half of your sleep architecture, and having these compounds at peak plasma concentration during that window maximizes their interaction with prostatic tissue during its most metabolically responsive period. Now, here is the cofactor that most protocols miss, and that will determine whether you experience good results or transformative results. 15 milligrams of elemental zinc picolinate taken in the same dose, same window. Zinc is not an afterthought here. The prostate gland contains the highest concentration of zinc of any organ in the human body, and this is not an accident. Zinc is a direct cofactor in the structural integrity of prostatic epithelial cell membranes. More critically for your purposes, zinc independently inhibits 5-alpha reductase activity through a separate mechanistic pathway than beta-sitosterol, meaning these two compounds are not redundant but additive in their enzymatic suppression. A depleted prostatic zinc environment, which is almost universally present in men with benign prostatic hyperplasia, creates a permissive cellular environment for DHT accumulation. Restoring zinc to optimal prostatic concentration using the picolinate form, which carries a documented absorption advantage over oxide or gluconate forms due to its chelation to picolinic acid for intestinal transport, essentially fortifies your prostate at the cellular membrane level, reducing DHT receptor sensitivity and supporting the clearance mechanisms that beta-sitosterol and stinging nettle root are simultaneously activating. To summarize the complete Iron Stream protocol, 500 milligrams purified beta-sitosterol, 300 milligrams stinging nettle root extract, 15 milligrams zinc picolinate, all three together, 30 minutes before bed, on an empty stomach, every night for 14 days without exception. Which brings me to the challenge I am issuing you right now. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to do one thing. Write down how many times you woke up last night to use the bathroom. Put that number somewhere you will not lose it. That is your day zero number. That is the number that your prostate, your DHT levels, and your failure to address the real biological mechanism have produced. Now start the Iron Stream protocol tonight. Every morning of the next 14 days, write down how many times you woke up. Track your stream strength subjectively. Track how long it takes to initiate flow. And on day 14, compare every single number to where you started. Men who have implemented this protocol consistently report cutting their nocturnal bathroom trips in half within the first week, with maximum flow rate improvements continuing to build through the second and third week as prostatic DHT levels normalize progressively. That is not marketing copy. That is what happens when you address the actual enzyme driving the actual swelling instead of swallowing a berry extract that your stomach neutralizes before breakfast. Tonight, throw away the saw palmetto, not because I told you to, because the Journal of the American Medical Association told you to, and you just learned why it has never helped. Implement the Iron Stream protocol. Join the men in the comments who are 14 days into this and reporting back with their numbers. Subscribe and share this with every man over 50 in your life who is suffering through this in silence, because nobody deserves to spend their nights shuffling to a bathroom while a solvable biological problem destroys their sleep, their energy, and their sense of themselves as a vital man. And I need you to stay alert for the next video, because we have been talking tonight about DHT and the prostate, but the same 5-alpha reductase enzyme that is strangling your flow is doing something far more visible and far more distressing to another part of your body simultaneously. There is a specific scalp follicle shrinkage mechanism driven by the exact same hormonal pathway we discussed tonight, and the intervention that reverses it is not minoxidil, it is not finasteride, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything currently on the market. The next video will show you the exact follicular reactivation compound that DHT research uncovered 2 years ago and that the pharmaceutical hair loss industry is desperate to suppress. Hit the notification bell right now, because this one will not sit quietly on the internet for long.